So today's episode of Fsh Tank Business Podcast, we have a very special guest on our show, Mr. Jeramy Moore from the 804. Originally hails from Petersburg, but now he's down in the 757 shaking things up. He's creating the next big way to produce manga. So, Jeremy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Jesse. I'm so honored to be here. Honestly, honored to be in the studio in 757 Startup Studios right now. It's an incredible experience. Been getting to know you, and I'm looking forward to talking about our journey so far.
Yeah.
So, you want to know a little bit about me?
Yeah. So I guess my first question is, how'd you get started in your industry?
In manga, okay, specifically. So around the pandemic, I was working at a consulting firm.
Can you?
Oh,
Sorry.
Trying to get some consistent sound in here. All right. Yeah. All right. So when the pandemic started, I was working at a consulting firm up in Northern Virginia. Did public affairs consulting because that's what I've been doing in the Air Force for about 9 years. And then, so on my bucket list, there's always been to create your own manga or comic, or really your own animation, or 12 episode, 30-minute animation, just a creative expression, really. So that's always been on my bucket list. Some people want to buy an RV. Some people want to go see Las Vegas or whatnot. It's always been something I definitely wanted to do.
Yeah.
So when I began the process during the pandemic, because we had more, everybody had more time at home, I went through the process, connected with a few Facebook groups, people who commission art on Facebook groups, and fans of manga and anime, whatnot. So I started to try to connect with the community to understand how people had done it before me, because I did find some indie animations. Actually, some person does one episode and hopes it gets picked up or whatnot, or they very rarely did I find a person who actually could physically produce that showed me their own custom comic or manga. But I found a bunch of people who wanted to, right, essentially. So went through the process. To get into specifics, I don't know how far you want to get into detail.
Yeah, I mean, shoot.
Okay, so through the Facebook groups, if you're trying to commission an image, essentially you can find artists on the Facebook groups. They say, these are my rates. This is what you'll get. Blah, blah, blah. It's not standardized. It's really a risky process because you never know. Artists are fickle a lot of the times. Sorry about that. Right. And so you never know what you're going to get a lot of the times. Okay. Mm-hmm. So going through the process of creating a 200-page manga or even like a 16-page comic, like something standard for an American comic, 16 to 25-page comic, what happens a lot of the times is an American will have an idea, and they will find an international or sometimes rarely a national illustrator that's qualified to produce this visual story for them. If you find an international illustrator, you're going to pay a lot less, definitely, than you would an American. Obviously, it's just like code in that way. Yeah. You go through the process, communicate with them. Maybe they have a team inker, an actual illustrator. Maybe they have a typist or something. But you pay them one big lump sum fee, or you pay them installments or whatnot, and then you tell them what you want. And sometimes that's like a Word document. Sometimes it's just a bunch of emails back and forth. The process can be really sloppy, certainly the people I talk to.
So it's definitely not standardized. And
no.
Yeah.
No way. Yes. So you do that, and you hope sometimes you get the work you want, sometimes you don't. Some of the people I spoke with, they pay up to $5,000-$6,000, and then the art in some pages is not what they want, and it's at the end of the process, and the illustrator started dealing with them and whatnot. But it was a super broken process from what I saw. And $5,000 or $6,000 for a 16 to 25-page comic is a lot of money. That's definitely a bucket list thing,
dude.
Right?
That's a car.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot. And some people have the desire to create more than one story. So if you wanted one, and that's just a print or really just a PDF version of what you want.
So you really only got like one shot,
right.
If you could afford it. Yeah.
Right. And then a lot of times these people with the intellectual property, we'll call it, have the work done, and then they have to spend years after that trying to market it. And it's one work. So long story short, I found the process very broken and painful and expensive. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then I started to think about how can I get people, because at the core of the process is taking creatives who don't illustrate and empowering them with the ability to illustrate. So I thought, can there be a tool that will empower, someone like Jesse, if he has an idea, to instantly visualize his idea or visualize it in an easy way? And there's a whole bunch of different tools out there, but nothing comprehensive. Like if you wanted to create a picture of a pig riding a tricycle with a red polka dot hat, on top of a roof, you can Google that.
Yeah.
Or you can pay an illustrator to do it. Or you can learn yourself, which is going to take some years. So learn yourself is not really an option for people who have jobs and commitments or whatnot. Paying an illustrator is not an option if you have the demand. If the demand is higher than your, budget or whatnot, because you can't pay an illustrator to create the picture for your pig and then the pictures all down the road. Like you're going to be limited by what you can create still, because it's based on the illustrator's time and whatnot. So started off, went through the ICAP program. Took that idea into the ICAP program. They just ripped it up. So the ICAP program, the program in Northern Virginia, does customer discovery.
George Mason.
Right. Yeah. Jeff Green. It's an incredible program. I went in there with that idea of a really 6-slide pitch deck. It was terrible. I mean, I couldn't understand it or articulate it. Yeah. Really, it was a discovery part of the process, and that was fine, actually. But they definitely gave me a lot of good feedback as to, hey, solving a problem. We don't know what, we don't want to rush to a web platform, or we don't even know what the problem is or whatnot. So it helped me refine a lot. Helped me kind of approach the business from the business is an answer to a question. So right now our question is, why can't I quickly and affordably create my own custom graphic novel and have it shipped to my door? Well, the answer will be StoryStorm. That's what we're hoping.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So it sounds like there was a lot of great content that we can really dive into in that little blurb about StoryStorm. I really like the idea because I think the nature of creative work, it's iterative, and you have to, you're building a company, it's a lot of iterations. You went to ICAP with a napkin sketch of an idea, but, they really dived into it. They asked you what the problems were, what your customer was facing, and how they were currently solving the problems and stuff. And they ripped you a new one. And it just seems so cost prohibitive for most people to create a custom manga independently. It almost seems like they really only have one shot at bat, with the considerable cost of producing it. So,
yeah, it's certainly cost prohibitive. That's the key word I found there. And then on the other end, it's incredible. Doing research for this, I found illustrators in Japan I'm connected with, a few of them who've actually worked on professional manga, and they're getting paid $20,000, $25,000 a year to produce some, to produce some of the most popular work in America. It's growing in popularity and whatnot, but the people who are fans of the industry are everyone on this should have the Disney budget, and it should be they should be compensated properly. So that was with the skill they have, right? With the skill to be able to bring those stories to life is unique, especially even amongst creatives. And it's unfortunate that they're compensated in that way, but it lets me know that hey, the process and the industry could use a sea change, if you will. So
yeah, I see there's problems on the demand side and the supply side. So the people supplying the service, they're not getting paid enough adequately because it's a global market, and just the amount of work it takes to produce the works manually. I guess it's really hard for them to bring home a decent wage. And then on the demand side, there's just so many creatives and idea people that just cannot afford to produce it through the existing frameworks.
Yeah, you'd never even come in contact with a Japanese illustrator in your normal life. You may watch anime, you may read manga, but
I've never met a manga artist, somebody that actually, drew it.
There are Americans who do comics or whatnot, but you never normally come in contact with them, and
the real technical people that are in there drawing it out, inking it.
A typical manga, it's led by one creative who pitches an idea to a big Japanese studio. They get a license to distribute the work and create the work, and then they get 5 or 6 assistants. So they
get what?
5 or 6 assistants.
What's that?
So a manga will be created like this. So you have one creative who's spearheading the project, who created the IP or whatnot. They go to the studio. Studio approves them or denies them. If they're approved, they get an office, and then typically, and this is a typical case, an office and 5 or 6 assistants. So one person is the lead illustrator. It takes 5 or 6 people to draw a manga, just one chapter.
And that's just entry level. You just broke into the industry, and you haven't even made it to market yet, and you haven't really monetized yet.
Right, exactly.
So considerable investment.
Yeah, and that's maybe 8-7 illustrators total. The lead illustrators getting paid maybe $80,000, $90,000, right? With royalties and whatnot, and then you got your assistants who are making under $20,000, potentially $30,000 a year. So the entire industry, like I read a statistic one time, in animation, 12-episode animation can cost $1 million to make. 36 illustrators working 12 hours a day, the top floor of some building or whatnot. They're putting in hours. We all know they're not properly compensated. It's very few people in the studio who get the money usually associated with creative projects. And then the entire manga and anime industry survive off of a few big hits. So they need things like Naruto and that gear you buy, and that's why you get a bunch of gear and then a bunch of toys and whatnot. They need things like Demon Slayer in the movie to break records and whatnot. But the entire industry, as passionate as we are in America and internationally, floats off of 1 or 2 large IPs per year. So and there's some things in the process. Obviously, having 36 illustrators turn out a bunch of work to try to create that hit or whatnot. There's some inefficiencies in the process, and we're looking to address that. But eventually, StoryStorm could become a place where an American with an idea sits down and logs into our web app, adjusts some settings, creates some inputs, and on the other end comes out with a custom animation, or a custom manga or whatnot. We're hoping. We found a lot of success with our customers so far, so we're looking to continue to grow.
And I think you've drawn a parallel between StoryStorm and Canva. So can you go on and explain how the two might be similar?
Yeah, so if you've ever used Canva.com, it's an intuitive web application that allows you to easily produce graphic design files, Facebook posts, even very minimalistic videos, postcards or whatnot. Essentially, with the Canva, a user goes into the system, sits down, logs into the web app, uses the template, edits the template, uses different elements from their library.
Drag and drop, resizing. And
really simple.
Yeah.
The creator of Canva actually developed it because she was a high school teacher. So she was trying to teach high school kids to use Photoshop and Illustrator, and that's not a thing, right? The programs have been the same for 30 years. But you use the program. Any user can pick up the program, be creative, and then be productive at the same time. So StoryStorm is definitely in that same vein where we're trying to empower these normal creatives. Our customers aren't people who are already in the industry, already in the creative industry. I'm looking to reach people like myself and my teammates who are, for better or worse, normal people with normal professional lives and whatnot, family obligations, who have it on their bucket list to be able to create something, right? Something meaningful and professional.
Yeah. I don't want to dive too deep into the weeds, but I do want to bring up some points. To me, it just seems interesting that we're in 2021. COVID-19 hit in 2020, and the whole world shut down. But I found myself using Canva a whole lot with just different church marketing stuff or for my business. A lot of my marketing materials for Fsh Tank are produced using Canva. So I think the whole DIY creative space digitally that's really, really accessible to users, I think that it's experiencing a huge surge in demand. I know for our companies, people keep advising us to maybe explore no-code options. like a WordPress or Webflow or, Bubble. So there just seems to be a huge demand and a growing popularity for DIY creative tools. So I think with that trend, and then maybe I see another trend with like K-pop and just the like widespread consumption of manga, like all over the world. I'm sure manga is probably, in every country being consumed, but a lot of it is probably produced in Japan.
Yeah, please stop me, Jesse, if I go on too long. I'm going to talk about this forever.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm a total nerd. This is what the show is about. So go ahead.
Okay, cool. So you started talking about Canva. They're on a list of unicorns. If you were to Google a list of unicorns, like a tech unicorns, so that's tech companies that have $1 billion valuation. They're right under SpaceX. So that's Elon Musk's company. So they're one of the most valuable tech companies to ever exist. SpaceX. So SpaceX, and then there's an Amazon, I think Blue Wonder.
Yeah.
Up there. But these are $1 billion tech companies with the highest value. And what essentially, like if you know SpaceX is changing the way we go to space. It's a sea change in the industry. So what you talked about is one of the most valuable things, or one of the most significant things that are happening in industry. They usually, kind of label those unicorns, if you will.
Yeah.
And Canva's a unicorn. It's got 300,000 paying subscribers, which is insane for a SaaS company.
300,000 paid subscribers. Right. Recurring revenue.
Every month.
It's fat.
So $7.99.
Stupid fat.
I think it's like 28 million in ARR is what I saw.
Yeah.
I think I had that right. Yeah. So, yeah, Canva is definitely creating a sea change in the publishing industry. They brand themselves as the future of design because this, high school teaching assistant saw that the kids of the future, or the next generation, was not going to invest all that time in learning Adobe programs. It's just not plausible, but they still wanted to be creative. So, yeah, that's super significant. And then on the webtoon front, or the manga and webtoon front, so more people read webtoons every single day than they watch television all over the world.
Yeah.
So they started in Korea, definitely, and they're growing in popularity. On the manga front, that is specific to Japan.
Yeah.
Most manga come out of Japan. There's one or two, off examples in South America, some even North America, whatnot. But yeah, it's specific to an industry, and it's just you've had the same people in the industry for 30 years.
Yeah, it's been an echo chamber of Japanese culture. They own manga, which is props to them. Yeah, it's great.
It started
but
a lot of history there.
It just seems like what's happening in Silicon Valley, where it's diffusing to the rest of the country and the rest of the world, where that culture is being exported and really being rebranded in each locality. Like we have our little 757 startup studios. It's its own spin on Y Combinator and that industry. So I think it will be interesting to see how manga and just creative, like comic creators and stuff, how that's going to change with the diffusion of this cultural experience that we know as manga and the technology that you're building. I think it's going to be really interesting to see that change.
Man, absolutely. Can you imagine the day where there's like an American manga?
Yeah.
Or a Virginia manga, or 757 manga, like we have our own genre that we create with.
It's iconic. It'd be amazing. So like we've really touched on like a lot of the big think and concept. Now we'll dive into like I guess the nerdier and professional stuff, like who are your competitors and how are you gonna beat them and whatever, right? But right now we're just gonna round out the I guess the dream casting. Jeramy, if you could tell me, what does the future look like? Like in 5 years, if you were to look into a crystal ball, how would you see the world in the whole manga and creative space? What will the impact of Story Storm be in 5 years?
So hopefully the impact, I guess the core value proposition will be that no matter what idea or concept or story anyone wants to depict, there will be a intuitive one-stop shop solution for people to be able to do it. So like get back to my pig on a roof picture. If you want to be able to do that, you'll have one website where you'll be able to do that. It will be empowering. StoryStorm will be empowering millions of people around the world to be able to share those stories and images and ideas. I guess in addition to that, StoryStorm, you'll be able to use StoryStorm to create a custom poem or a film storyboard or your own animation or whatnot. It'll just be a one-stop intuitive solution for normal people to be creative. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
I remember I had, some friends growing up. They were like, they were goofing off in class and stuff, and they'd just be like sketching like anime stuff, because we were all a bunch of anime nerds and manga nerds. But they would be sketching manga, like cartoons and stuff. And I just thought it was really cool. Maybe in the future we'll have kids creating comics while the teacher's trying to teach them something on Zoom. And
well, that's another integration, Jesse. So when we started in 757 Studios, they had for programming a bunch of times, people connected to the local government, educators and whatnot. On my desk, actually, there's a book of Macbeth, the manga, and then there's a book of Macbeth, the play by Shakespeare. And so to a normal person, and probably high school, elementary, or middle school student, the manga version would relay the information that Shakespeare wanted to relay much more efficiently than the text version.
Yeah.
Right.
Memes, like everybody, the way it even affects the way we talk. Like we talk in memes and stuff and social media.
And we're all more visual, and our attention span is shorter. So you can relay information in a visual way much more efficiently than you can in a text way.
Yeah.
Love text, not going away, but yeah, ideally, like every book in your library, if you go to the library, you see thousands of books. StoryStorm would be able to turn those thousands of books into a digital form that you can send to another person and then share the information in those books with more people. So
I love that. I love that so much, dude.
Yeah, man.
We're talking about the invention of the printing press and stuff. More and more people are becoming literate. It's changing the way we can consume and interact with information. Yeah. I remember hearing, I have a Christian background, so just hearing about the way, the Bible was distributed in, way back before the printing press, thousands of years ago, right? It was an oral tradition. And then I think the Gospel of Mark, I think it was originally written and it was performed as a play. That's what I've heard. So they went from town to town, acting out a play or something. I've heard that from somewhere. Don't quote me on it. I ain't no expert, but
that sounds about right though. It's people don't most people don't receive information the same way.
Yeah.
Some people receive information reading a book. Some people need a play. Some people need a song. It's about sharing the information, sharing the story.
Yeah. Because the story is what matters ultimately. It's the characters and the heartbeat and the virtue and the message.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it. I've learned that certainly through, kind of observing the startup world in the past few years. Those unicorns and companies that really create that sea change are the, longest lasting companies. There's nothing wrong with creating a company and selling it, something that ships things or, a knob for a door or something like that. But those companies certainly are more special to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad StoryStorm is trying to be that.
Mm-hmm. It's really focused on who are the people you're serving. So you're helping the creatives, and you're also helping the people that help create the stuff, the technical people that, there's pay differentials and you're solving multiple problems.
Yeah, man. You can imagine being able to create your own animation and then have your friends be voice actors. Right? So we can integrate that into the web app too. It's an all-inclusive, one-stop shop option.
I think it's beautiful, dude. And it's got big, big, big implications.
We got a long way to go, but thank you.
Because you think about how movies are picked up and stuff. Somebody will get a hold of a book and they'll read a book, and then suddenly a book will become a movie. So if somebody just uses not a free, but a really affordable, you know, virtual option like Canva to produce a manga. That's insane, dude. Like, think about the volume of creative works that'll be put out and just the quality over time. You know, the cream's going to rise to the top.
Yeah, man. Have you ever used anything like Final Draft or Scrivener?
Mm-mm.
So those are, in my quest for creating manga, I download those programs. Those are script writing programs, and there's a bunch of script writing apps out there too. But a lot of those programs, the problem with those is they don't have any visual elements at all. They have storyboards, you can put images in and whatnot, and they're desktop. So that industry's archaic in a way. You got to download a program.
It's for like old people. Yeah. I mean, no offense, but it's for like real adults.
They haven't changed since 1980. Adobe hasn't changed since the 85. You know, they've tried to update, but they don't have a library or.
They're still getting payments via check, or mail order or whatever, right?
Yeah, man. So we can certainly. I think the industry's ripe for interruption. I am. Our team is betting on the Storystone will be that interruption.
Yeah, I'm betting on it too, man.
Thank you.
That's a great product. So diving into, I guess, the more technical stuff, the stuff investors and like really professional, entrepreneurs, the stuff they're focused on. I guess, who are your competitors?
Okay, I just talked a little bit about Adobe or whatnot, but I wouldn't consider them a direct competitor. Right now, if you look at competitors, our customer is using Facebook groups, DeviantArt, Pixiv, some places, any place where you can see an illustrated portfolio where they're giving out commissions, that would be our competitor. Because the web app uses, we're using, we have Illustrator, it's a commission system, essentially, a really integrated, standardized commission system. So we don't really have a direct competitor, no, that would allow you to press manga. It's a new industry or whatnot. Some things that I've kind of come across in my research, there's an app called Storyboard That, Wonder Unit, I think it's called. Maybe I can Google all these if they want to. Wonder Unit is a very rough storyboarding tool. There's a few on Steam, actually. There's two. One called Kuma Kuma Comic Editor. Just a very basic, like I said, white models that you can just kind of move around. And Illustrator would use those to illustrate on top of. So things like that are kind of in the competitive space, but and we have competitors. I don't want to say we don't have competitors or whatnot, but we are, like I said, going for that sea change. So no one has their finger on the pulse of creating mangas right now. But I did come across this year. Do you know what Shonen Jump is?
Yeah, it's huge. Naruto, Dragon Ball Z,
exactly,
right?
That mega manga publisher in Japan, they put out a contest this year because they're looking for ideas.
Wow.
All right? It's crazy. But a contest this year was August this year, and it's an app called Comic World. I think it's Comic World Maker or whatever. You can Google Shonen Jump manga contest. So they put out an app that lets you create a manga. Now, it is super basic, and they use line art, like stick figure drawings, because they want you to be creative and whatnot. It's just about them taking the IP later and then producing it. Essentially, if you win the contest, you get your IP produced.
Wow!
So that's certainly they really just let us know we're in the right space.
Yeah. That was the winner of the contest.
Oh no, they haven't. I don't think they've announced the winner yet.
Okay.
It just ended in October.
But that was a notable entry that you saw.
Oh yeah, I saw that YouTube video. I was like, because it was this year and relevant. I was like, yeah, we're definitely in the right space. That would be probably the closest competitor, but they don't close the loop, as we call it. Like, closing the loop would be, if it's on your bucket list, some people are going to want that comic to show up at their door. If it shows up at your door, you can show it to other people. Right. If it shows up at your door, you can, take it.
It's got the show and tell aspect of, like, you can show and demonstrate, this is amazing. Check this out, dude.
Exactly. So no direct competitors, but there's obviously people in the realm or whatnot. You got Adobe, and there's a program called, I can't think of the name of it, but there are a few Canva clones out there too. Just nobody really dives into this realm. I don't know whether it's taboo to talk about, anime. I've always talked about these things in manga or whatnot, but we're definitely in an experimental industry.
Yeah. That's cool, man. So, I guess you had mentioned something about a commission-based system. I guess is that how you plan on producing revenue for Storystorm?
So we're using SaaS, a typical business to customer SaaS model, which will be very similar to Canva, freemium. So to use the application, just use some of the features of the application. It's completely always going to be free. We want people to be creative, like I said, high school kids, and we want to empower people at the core.
Mm-hmm.
There will be advanced features and advanced image assets that will be available on a first, a standard tier, we'll call it. And then there will be a premium tier as well where, we have a dedicated artist to your project. And
somebody to help oversee and manage the work.
Specifically, maybe it'll help to explain the way the app we're building will work. So a user just will log in, and we'll have storyboarding and planning tools first. All in, an intuitive single one-stop shop space, but we'll have some planning and storyboarding tools that we can't find anywhere else on the web, some visual storyboarding tools so that, if you wanted to create something as vast as One Piece, right, we would have the tools there to be able to help you create it. And after you move, you can skip, storyboarding tools and whatnot, but after you move out of the storyboarding tools section, then there'll be a image library where you can move images on to your canvas to essentially let the illustrator know where you want things, how you want things and whatnot. You can move images on and then leave notes right there as well. And then after, you're pretty comfortable with where the images are and the notes you left and the hints you left, then an illustrator can come in and actually illustrate the finished work. Mm-hmm. As we move on with the system, we want it to be more and more, like I said, automated. We want to give the creative a whole bunch of power, so we're going to keep developing image assets to really give them the creative freedom that they definitely deserve as creatives. But in the early days of our process, we're going to have kind of be dependent upon illustrators to come in and illustrate the work, and then the user will be able to come back in and review it, make sure it's good or whatnot, and then can go to export digitally or have it shipped to their door.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. So, what stage of development is StoryStorm in? Is it ideation, prototype, MVP? Are you guys in the market? Like, where are you guys?
Right. So the web app that we want to build is in the prototype phase. We also have an e-commerce site that's fully functional. We offer memberships there to a number of illustration templates, base files. I don't know if you ever know what those are, but they're traded on things like Facebook groups and DeviantArt or whatnot. They help illustrators illustrate faster. Mm-hmm. So that site's fully up, and it's actually post-revenue. But we're looking to build the actual web app system in the next few months. I'm in talks with, some accelerator programs and some investors or whatnot. We're hoping to either be accepted into those programs or gain some momentum in that type of way so that we can actually publish the web app, because we've had estimates, we know it's not going to cost less than $20,000. We have a great development team in mind, but we were looking for to grow some funding right now, actually, to be able to to build this digital space our community wants.
Okay, so what would be your big ask if somebody was watching this podcast? What would you ask them to do? Like, how can they support what you're doing?
Absolutely. So, connections are definitely one of our main asks right now. We'd love to be connected with entrepreneurial communities across the world, illustrators or whatnot, and illustration and art communities. I guess one of our main asks would be people in the startup space who understand manga, because in my experience so far, I get two experiences when I talk to somebody about StoryStorm. Either they understand manga and the phenomenon that it is, or anime or whatnot, and they're on board, or I have to elaborate a bit more and kind of bring in the Canva comparison. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to speak with an investor who understands manga, or has been a fan, and is potentially one of those non-professional creatives who'd love to see their vision depicted or have their custom manga in their hand. It's really easy to make the business proposal when people understand.
Yeah.
And I'd love to speak to people like that.
Okay. So really qualified, hot investors that are really interested in this space.
Yeah. And a lot of people, more people just in the community with, who know people who understand.
Connecting.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So how much money do you need?
So we're in an angel round right now. We're looking for somewhere around $190,000, $200,000.
Okay.
I won't go into the details of valuations and what equity we're looking to give up, but that's where we are right now. We have a good business model out and a pitch deck available. And
where can they find that? Where can our viewers find that?
Absolutely. So you can email jmoore@storystorm.co or go to our website. We have a contact form there. I'll respond to those emails.
Okay. I'll have it listed in the description below in YouTube. So you'll be able to see that.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Okay.
I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Fsh Tank out.